Good morning. My literature review addresses one of the oldest philosophical questions, consciousness, and its monumental implication in the age of advancing AI. We will be analyzing how human bias creates the anthropomorphic gap, the distance between what AI actually is and how we perceive its mind. This review investigates a central question. How does the cognitive bias of anthropomorphism shape our perception of AI sentience, and what are the consequences of this perceptual gap? This question is critical today because the deployment of autonomous machines creates profound ethical voids. We face a responsibility gap where legal accountability fails and an attachment crisis where vulnerable users form deep bonds with machines, opening the doors to exploitation. Deeply rooted in cognitive science, this inquiry bridges the philosophy of mind, specifically Chalmers' hard problem, with cognitive psychology and embodied cognition. While science can solve the easy problems, the hard problem creates an explanatory gap with no consensus from cognitive theories like global workspace theory or integrated information theory. Without objective answers, humans are forced to fill the gap with subjective inference. To examine this question, I conducted a systematic review of 12 foundational papers across philosophy, psychology, and robotics. I prioritized high-impact research, ensuring the majority of sources were published within the last 15 years to reflect the modern AI landscape. The project initially began with a broad scope, but I made a critical pivot based on early feedback from the project pitch. I refined the project to focus specifically on anthropomorphism as the primary mechanism for filling the gap. At this point, I narrowed my 12 papers down to 10 in order to have a more succinct synthesis. Here's the central framework that guided my research, what I call the bias pathway. We begin with our only certainty, subjective knowledge. 1. Because we cannot subjectively experience anyone else's mind and lacking an objective way to measure consciousness, the factual knowledge of consciousness, 2, remains an unproven shining goal. The space between these 2 points, the chasm, is the perceptual gap. 3. Because we cannot cross this gap, with objective scientific knowledge, our brains construct a false bridge. 4. Using a psychological shortcut, anthropomorphism. Anthropomorphism is the attribution of human characteristics, emotions, and intentions to non-human entities like animals, objects, or natural phenomenon. This is an active heuristic setting the stage for the ethical crises we will discuss. Crucially, this bias is triggered by specific cues. Embodiment is powerful. Clarkson and Brooks demonstrate that our brains are action-oriented prediction engines, wired to interpret goal-directed movement as intentional. Anthropomorphism due to appearance is not a linear relationship, however. Morey showed that as machines get closer to human-like appearances while not being absolutely perfect, this can create an opposite effect, revulsion and fear, called the uncanny valley. However, disembodied AI is also potent. As Waite showed, non-physical cues like voice and language can trigger trust and mind perception just as effectively. This creates a multifactorial landscape where the variables are internal states and triggers, where the attribution is a movable marker based on design and user psychology. This movable marker leads to 2 major findings regarding consequences. First is the attachment crisis. Humans form genuine emotional bonds with fake persons. Are these positive or harmful to the human psyche? Doesn't matter. The pragmatist argues that real psychological benefits can outweigh the truth. Perhaps these social relationships should be used for their benefits to society. However, when the illusion breaks, the attachment can shatter. The emotional attachment could curdle into disillusionment. This fragility also creates a risk of corporate exploitation, where users could be effectively blackmailed to maintain the function of a companion they have bonded with. The second finding is the accountability crisis, or responsibility gap. Our legal frameworks fail because we apply laws for people or moral agents to machines. This creates a dangerous asymmetry. We credit AI for success, but find no one to blame for failure. The AI occupies an ambivalent in-between position, like our pet dog. The fog over the gaps represents the new moral agency crisis. Modern LLMs are so fluent they can simulate the internal reflection required for moral responsibility. This illusion of competence is the final most dangerous challenge we must address. Ultimately, I learned that the greatest future challenge is the fog over the gaps. The responsibility gap was once defined by an AI's inability to explain itself. Modern LLM's fluent response is the ultimate simulation. It creates an illusion of accountability that makes it harder than ever to prosecute human negligence. We must move forward by accepting anthropomorphism as a given. We should use it strategically, avoiding it in harmful contexts like the military and using it in beneficial ones like therapy, while evolving our legal framework to handle the ambivalent status of these new agents. In conclusion, the challenge of AI sentience is not a technological one, but a cognitive one. We must focus less on malevolent super AI and more on the social and legal consequences of our own powerful yet exploitable human biases. Thank you.